Chapter 18. Benito's turned out to be a swanky, trendy Italian restaurant located just outside of Union Station in downtown St. Louis. The old railroad station has been converted into a modern-day shopping mecca complete with upscale stores, fine restaurants, and a luxury hotel. The revitalized neighborhood around the massive 19th-century structure is known as one of the most upscale areas of the city. A doorman stepped up to the side of David's car as it pulled to a complete stop, and he carefully opened the door for Jessica and assisted her in standing up with all the care of a china doll. The smell of the city was even heavier here than it had been at David's apartment, and the noise of the traffic and street life seemed to echo through the concrete canyons. After tipping the doorman, David led the two inside. He had been here before, admitting to Jessica that this is where his father took clients that he wanted to wine, dine, and impress. They walked over to the reservations counter and announced that they were with the Miller party. "Oh, yes, right this way." And they were off through a maze of plants, elegant tables with vases and fresh flowers, crystal and fine tableware, and chilling bottles of wine. They were led into a large room in the back, where a woman who was obviously David's mother stood chatting with guests. Catching sight of her son, she excused herself and rushed over to give David a quick hug. "I am so glad you made it, you had me worried." "So what else is new?" She turned and noticed Jessica for the first time, and for the briefest of moments there was a look of confusion on her face, quickly discarded by a polite smile. "And you must be my David's date for the evening. I am Marta, David's mother." "Jessica Thomas," Jessica said in a voice that she hoped sounded confident and friendly, offering the older woman a firm handshake. A quick look, no more than the most brief of glances, flashed between mother and son, and again her smile displayed warmth that Jessica doubted she felt. "It's very nice to meet you, Jessica. You must be from the hinterlands, where David has been hiding lately." "Guilty as charged, Marta." Jessica nodded. "My particular part of the hinterlands is Riverton. It's not the end of the earth, but you can see the edge from there." Marta nodded politely, and turned to David. "So why is it your mother has to find out however long it's been later that you broke your wrist?" she asked pointedly, looking at the cast on his arm. "It's no big deal, I am fine," he said with a shrug. "I fell off my bicycle. It's just cracked, not really bad at all." "You and that darned bicycle, it's going to be the death of you yet." Marta turned and looked Jessica over. "Yes, and you ride one of those things too, don't you, young lady?" "Guilty as charged, again," Jessica replied. "Well, at least he has somebody to ride with, so the next time he gets hit by some lawyer driving an SUV you can at least call the ambulance quickly." "There's some old friends just coming in, will you excuse me?" she said, walking off to meet the newcomers. This time it was David and Jessica that exchanged glances. "Don't ask me," he said after a minute. "She must have heard about it somehow. She has always had a sixth sense about things. It's almost eerie." David's father was the next person to enter the room. Jessica remembered his picture from the company website. He was dressed in a dark black tailored tuxedo, with a white pleated shirt and a red bow tie. Randolph walked around the room, greeting and handshaking with his guests, thanking them all for attending. "We will be last," David said quietly. "He wants me to know he's not happy with me, so he will greet us last." True to David's prediction, they were the final couple that Randolph stopped to greet. "Welcome home, David. Tell me you are done playing Mr. Fix-It, and we can get back to work," the elder Miller said with a passing nod to Jessica. "I am nearing completion of the house," David said, not giving in an inch. "To be more precise, we are nearing completion of the project," he proclaimed, nodding at Jessica. "And you are Jessica Thomas," she said, hand extended. David's father took her hand, shook and then quickly turned it over and examined her palm and fingers. "I can see that you have been doing some work with those hands, young lady," he said. "That's refreshing to see. What is it you are doing on David's little project?" Without batting an eye, she responded, "Head carpenter, and interior design." "What an interesting combination, although I do suppose that in the country people are not so picky about job titles. Every job here is union, and they are pretty particular when it comes to that sort of thing, let me tell you. When David is done with all this nonsense, why don't you come to work for us, young lady. We can use somebody in our decoration department that knows how to get her hands dirty. Dad, David said in a sharp, threatening tone. Son, you need to relax. Randolph said smoothly. This is a social event. Why are you always bringing up work at times like this? You have to learn to put work behind and enjoy the day, he said with a wink, before walking off. Sorry about that, David said. Somebody once said you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your relatives. Don't worry about it, Jessica replied with a smile. Speaking of relatives, there's my sister, he said pointing. I am going to ignore her, and hope she has the decency to return the favor. You don't like your sister. I love my sister. She's a charming, witty and very funny person. She has a funny habit, though. She likes to argue. It's a sport for her. Sometimes it's a lot of fun, you just say something and she picks the opposite side. I don't really need that tonight. Well, Jessica said as David's older sibling was walking towards them, looks like you are going to get it anyway. David, it's good that you are here. Mom just about to have a stroke when she heard about your accident, she said. Turning to Jessica, she extended a hand. Hi, I am Audrey. You are absolutely lovely. David, she said turning back to her younger brother. It's been so boring around here without you. When are you coming home? Aren't you having enough fun with that rock climber you were dating? He asked. Oh, him. Audrey replied, well, to be honest he was absolutely fabulous in bed, but not much of a talker. Turning to Jessica, she winked and stage whispered, a girl can only spend so much time under the sheets. Am I right? Jessica returned her wink with a grin. I wouldn't know, I still haven't gotten tired of it yet. Anyway, David said, interrupting them before they had a chance to gang up on him, I think dinner is about to be served. Jessica had to admit that, if nothing else, the food at Benito's was excellent, and so was the wine. She ended up sitting next to Audrey, and the two instantly hit it off. Audrey, Jessica learned, was also in the family business. She was an architectural photographer, whose job it was to document the progress of the building sites. By the time dessert was served, the two women were on their way to forming a real friendship. At the end of dessert, David cleared his throat and muttered to Jessica, time to be the oldest son, and dinked his fork on his wine glass to get the 50 people in the room's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate 40 years of marriage between my parents, Randolph and Marta. He paused for a round of applause, and then continued. Things sure have changed a lot in the 40 years since the two of them were married, but I am proud to say that they have both remained loyal, loving and best friends throughout the years. I would like all of you to join me in wishing them a happy, productive and healthy 40 more years. The room erupted in applause again. That was very nice, David, Jessica told him when he sat down. I meant every word of it too, he replied. My folks may have their own way, but a lot of people could learn by their example. Jessica smiled. Randolph got up and addressed those assembled, thanking them for attending. David's right, times have changed, he said. I remember when we first were married, we found out that Marta was pregnant with Audrey early on in our marriage. I can tell you that Marta was a good girl, and that meant something in those days. She was so worried that Audrey might be born premature, but good Lord willing she was born 9 months, and 4 days after the ceremony. Let me tell you, all the ladies in the neighborhood counted it out, too, he said as the audience laughed. I wish that you all can or will at some time in your life, that you can have a love like Marta and I have. We are lovers and best friends. You all know that I am not the sentimental type, and I occasionally do think of business first. He paused again, as the laughter spread through the room. But seriously, it doesn't mean anything without your family. We are blessed that Audrey and David are both here today. I keep hoping for grandchildren, he said with a smile, so you people keep your fingers crossed for me, okay? Jessica's face went flush, but not from embarrassment. She could imagine a day all too vividly when she would hold out a child, her child, for Grandpa Randolph to hold. Then that warm glow turned cold. If it wasn't for the accident, she realized, Randolph would have a 9-year-old granddaughter, or grandson right now, likely more than one. The party started breaking up, and the guests started donning their coats. When Jessica went off to grab her wrap, Audrey caught David's arm and pulled him aside. She's amazing, she whispered. This one's a keeper. There's one thing that keeps bugging me, though. She looks just like that poor girl you dated in college. Even has the same last name. Don't tell me they are sisters, David admitted. Wow, that's odd, Audrey said. I want to hear all the details. Trust me, it wasn't planned, he said. The project I am doing is in the town where she lives. We just kind of hit it off. Does she know that you and her sister, well, you know? Yeah, she knows, he said, and she's okay with that? Audrey asked with surprise. Not entirely, no, David said. It's complicated, I can imagine. She said, whatever, sister or no, this one is a keeper, David. If you don't ask that girl to marry you on the spot, you are a complete moron. You know that, right? Yeah, if I don't ask her to marry me, I am a total idiot. I have already figured that one out on my own, but thanks for bringing it up, sis. Driving towards David's apartment, Jessica broke what had become a long silence. Thanks for inviting me, she said. It was an interesting evening. Your sister is so much fun. We could be serious buddies, I want you to know. She's a hoot, there's no doubt about that, David said. Of course, she was on her best behavior tonight. Too bad, I bet she can be a riot. You were on your best behavior too, weren't you, David? It was their night, and I wanted it to go well. You only get one 40th wedding anniversary, and that's if you are lucky. My folks are good for each other, he said. When they got back to his apartment, he took off his jacket and tie, went to the hall closet, and got out a blanket and pillow, and flopped down on the couch. You can take my bed, he said. David, this is absolutely silly. This is your house, you should sleep in your own bed. It's okay, I fall asleep a lot out here on the couch. I do a lot of work at night, and half the time I nod off over building plans out here. You are going to sleep in your own bed, and that's all there is to it, Jessica said. If anybody is going to sleep on the couch, I am. Although, yours is a pretty big bed. We are both adults, and I for one can control my raging wanton lust for your body for one night. I think that if you try really hard, you might be able to control your raging wanton lust for mine for just one night too. I doubt it, he said, looking at her in her long black dress. I doubt I can control it if I am within 50 feet of you. I can live with that, she said with a smile.